This vase is a really wonderful piece of Russian craftsmanship made at the end of the 19th century, in fact completed in 1872. And the vase itself is made of wonderful Korgon porphyry, which is a particularly prized Russian hardstone found in the Altai Mountains in Siberia. The whole piece was made in one of the most important centres for hardstone production in Russia, in Kolyvan, the Kolyvan factory in Yekaterinburg. In order to have the vase restored, it was necessary to find a specialist conservator who could piece together some of the elements that were broken, but also, more importantly, be able to replicate in a correctly conservation grade way the areas that were lost.
The main problems with this were structurally how it was going to be put together, loss of detail in a couple of places. That was the biggest cosmetic problem, and it was just really dirty. It just needed a little bit of care. The cleaning for this piece, it was actually really sort of straightforward. It was just detergent and hot water, and then a solvent rinse afterwards just to get rid of any residue.
We have photographs of the vase taken in the late 19th century which clearly show that Queen Victoria had placed it in a very prominent position at Windsor Castle in the Crimson Drawing Room. And the photographs show us that the vase and pedestal are prominently placed in the window bay overlooking the gardens of the East Terrace. The vase remained there until 1908, when it was then subsequently moved into the Orangery at Windsor, where it appears to have remained until about 1934. And thereafter it was placed into storage. And it was around this time, we think, although we have no specific records to confirm it, that the vase and pedestal suffered some minor damage. And this might in fact explain why they were no longer on display. The vase was actually a really important official gift from the Russian Emperor, Alexander II, to Queen Victoria. And the gift itself was made in 1874. And the gift was sent to England in advance of the Emperor's visit here to London.
After the cleaning, we went into making moulds for the detail and repairing the pieces that were broken off. And it's like similar to an egg and dart design. After we've taken the mould, we make a resin mix that matches the colour of the stone, fill the mould and wait for that to go off. We match the colour of the stone using earth pigments, and we match it by eye, and it really is just trial and error and experience. Once we've got a plain coloured resin piece, we then cut out little chips and nicks and lines and fill them with different colour resins, and do that 3 or 4 times so that we've got the natural sort of variations in the stone.
A vase of this type takes a tremendous amount of skill to carve, and we can clearly see very proudly engraved on the bottom of the wonderful porphyry vase an inscription. And this records that the vase took 18 months to make, which seems like an extraordinary length of time. But when we look more in detail at the different aspects of the vase, you can see just why this was the case. But the part that really takes the greatest amount of skill, but also the longest amount of time, is the amount of hand carving and hand finish which actually takes place. And this is what gives the vase its extraordinary different levels of surface finish. Part of the process for the vase and pedestal to undergo its fantastic conservation work has been, of course, moving it.
Getting the middle part onto the column itself is quite a feat of engineering, and that's sort of, we think that's why there's been the damage caused, because it's so difficult to handle.
This is by no means an inconsiderable task. It actually requires a lot of specialist intervention, particularly because the vase and pedestal combined weigh over 600 kilograms. Now that the conservation has been completed, the vase is fully erected and safely and stably on display, The completion of this whole process, on top of all the research that has been undertaken, is to properly document the vase and pedestal visually through photography, and this is really the final stage in this journey in bringing the vase back to public attention.